You gonna give me that kitten or no?
Oh, did you want him?
No, that one.
Oh, I was like,
Well, welcome everyone to the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy. And we're really happy today to have to do our podcast on National Adopt a Shelter Pet Day. And today we have two guests, which we're really thrilled to have.
Well, wait a minute.
Well-
2 guests plus a lot of little ones.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We have a lot of little guests here. I'm sure that you've all noticed that. But we have Melinda Ventura, who's the executive director, and Tracy Martin, who's the shelter manager. And we're going to talk a little bit about what they do and about adopting pets. Before we get going, though, I want to just recognize our sponsor, Bay Coast Bank. Bay Coast Bank is just right for all of your financial needs. Visit baycoastbank.com or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. So without further ado, let's get going.
So, Melinda and Tracy, both coming from the Humane Society and Shelter of Southcoast.
over in
So,
Dartmouth.
yeah, so tell us, oh my God, I just can't get over these little furry guys.
They're incredibly
Hi.
cute, aren't they?
Hi. Do these guys have names, by the way? Like, did I get Bruno? Hi, Bruno. Hi.
What would you like their names to
This
be?
one's Tiger.
Did you know that every
Tiger.
cat that looks like those colors, those 3 tricolors, are always females? You don't even have to look
No,
at them.
sir.
Really?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Well, let's call you Shirley.
You know, my wife told me that the other day, and I didn't believe her.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna be in trouble when I get home.
What
now.
about all the what about the cats that look like that? Are they always males?
Nope.
Not always, but they do have most of them are males. It's not often we see a female, but they do exist. We occasionally see them.
So tell us a little bit about the shelter up in Dartmouth. You said it was located in Dartmouth. And what street is located on?
Yep, we're on 31 Ventura Drive over in Dartmouth. We used to be located, our corporate name is actually the Animal Rescue League of New Bedford.
Okay.
And when we moved out of the city of New Bedford, we used to be down on the waterfront, and we decided we needed a newer facility that and a name that kind of depicted more of what we do. People were confused, thinking when we were called the Animal Rescue League of New Bedford that we were funded by tax dollars.
Yeah.
And we're not. We're totally funded by donations.
Oh.
We have a couple of municipal contracts, meaning, so every city or town by law is required to take care of their stray dogs. Unfortunately, cats aren't necessarily included in that. So we're the holding facility for the town of Dartmouth and the town of Marion, and then we do some overflow work with the city of New Bedford and the city of Fall River.
So when I first walked into your place out in Dartmouth, first of all, you walk in, this is a beautiful facility. You walk in and everyone's so friendly and it's just, it's so cheery. There's a really good feel about it. So I would really recommend people come and check it out and check out the services that you provide. And I didn't know that you provided a bunch of different services. I was just thinking, oh, let's just go look at adoption and see what you have around. But you guys, first of all, you're more than just cats and dogs, and you offer more in your services, like grooming, which surprised me, than just what I thought in my head. So talk a little bit
Yeah,
about
we have
that.
all kinds of different things going. The pandemic has certainly been a challenge for us and continues to be a challenge, both financially and in terms of getting the animals in, trying to figure out how to stay open. Our fundraising has virtually been absolutely nothing during the pandemic. A big event that we do right at the shelter is the Gimme Shelter Gala Extravaganza that we do in the building, and it's a lot of fun. It's an open bar, and it's all kinds of food. We usually have Faze
Nice.
from Dartmouth over there catering the
Yeah.
event. And it's been, I'm sorry about that. There's been, what are we, like
That one must be
15,
called Taylor.
15 or 16 years into it now. But it's been really interesting because the people who come to the event have met other people at the event, because it's every year, and that's the only place they know them from. And you see them come in the night of the event, and they're like, oh, hey, where's the people from Nantucket Chocolatiers? Where are they this year? And,
Right.
you know, it really has become a community of people looking for other people that they get
That's
to
great.
know through our events. But unfortunately, this year, we won't be able to do it either. And hopefully, if everybody gets vaccinated and we get some, herd immunity going, maybe next year we'll be able to have the event. We don't have a full groomer on staff anymore, but we still do baths and nails.
And
We
it's by
do.
appointment?
Yep, and we also have a crematorium
Okay.
on site, which you wouldn't see from the front of the building.
Sure.
Because although nobody likes to talk about it, there are people who,
Yeah, we
you know, their animals are at the end of their life and they can't necessarily afford a vet visit. Or, you know, what do you do with your animal if you can't
Yeah.
afford to go
Sure.
to the vet? And again, with the pandemic, trying to get a vet visit now is you know,
Oh my
that's a
gosh,
major
yes.
undertaking taken as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we have
absolutely.
that service. Like I said, we are the holding facility for a couple of the towns, and then we do some overflow stuff with the cities. And the other thing that we do is we are a state-approved quarantine facility. So for all these animals that you're seeing coming from the south, in Massachusetts, Massachusetts is extremely strict about the animals being imported because they want to keep everybody safe, they want
Sure.
to control disease, and unfortunately for us,
Imported from other states?
from other states. You see, most of the animals you're seeing right now, you know, if you walk around a park or whatever and you ask somebody, oh, where'd you get that dog? They'll say, oh, I got them from down south.
Right.
Almost all of them now are coming
It's
from down
amazing,
south.
but that is the case.
Well, we've done a really good job of spaying and neutering up here,
Yeah.
and the south is still a mess. They're sort of like where we were in the 80s.
Right,
Oh
right.
my God.
And they're just not spaying and neutering, you know, and it's, I mean, there's, I'm sure, many reasons for that down there, but, so as pets became more scarce up here, a lot of the shelters and the rescue said, well, why don't we help our neighbors to the south and their animals and try and get them up here, which sounds like it would be an easy thing.
Right.
But it's not, because there's all kinds of restrictions. They have to be held for 48 hours in a state-approved facility. There are very few facilities like ours that do isolation for other places.
Yeah.
I think there's maybe 4 of us. So that's sort of a growing need, which kind of helps us to accomplish our goals or our mission in kind of an indirect way, because it's helping other rescues get their animals up
Yeah.
here. Because if you don't have a quarantine facility, you can't bring your animals up.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
it's, and then you've got the transportation piece of it, and the, you
Like,
know,
who
there's,
knew all this was in the background when you
it
just
is
want to go get a puppy?
unbelievable.
Right.
It is unbelievable
Or a
what's
kitty cat.
what's involved. And they did, we're, all the shelters and rescues in Massachusetts are overseen by the Department of Agriculture Shelter and
Oh.
Rescue Program, which a lot of people don't realize either. And in the state's infinite wisdom, they decided to roll out new regulations during the pandemic,
Awesome. That's great.
which is always
You have a little
helpful.
extra time.
Yeah. So we've, you know, we've spent a boatload of money updating the facility with new floors and things like that. And, you know, when you think of shelters, you have to think about, people don't realize how much cleaning goes on. Like when
Oh,
you
yeah.
walked
I can
into our building,
imagine.
you probably noticed it doesn't smell.
No, it was really nice.
And that's a huge undertaking,
Yeah.
you know, and we clean with different chemicals that have to be safe not only for the animals, but for the staff.
Right.
Sure.
And then you throw the pandemic stuff in,
Oh
and
my gosh.
it's
It
it's
gets
really been
crazy.
I mean, it's been a challenge for everybody, obviously, but, oh, hello.
Oh,
We have an
he
interview
wants
here.
to say something.
Curious,
see?
huh?
Please tell us what you have to say.
So talk about these guys. Like, what, you call them bottle babies, right?
They're not bottle
These
babies.
guys aren't.
They
Those
do
aren't-
have a mom.
Okay.
Okay,
Mom was actually feral.
okay.
Okay.
So feral, familiar with the,
Like a wild
yeah.
cat, basically.
So she ended up having, I found these kittens in an abandoned car.
Oh,
So
geez.
we ended up catching mom. So we do have the mom and we have the babies. But once we get these guys to where they're adoptable, then what we'll do is we'll release the feral mom back to where she came from after we get her spayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's,
I think that, you know, we have white cats in my neighborhood. We had about 5 or 6 of them,
yeah.
and we worked through a shelter.
Yep.
And they came and they were really good. They collected the cats, and I had no idea that this was something that you guys do either. But
A lot of the animal control officers now, they're actually doing that, and that's why
yeah,
especially with the ferals. you
I
know.
mean that's great because now the cats came back to the neighborhood, but they're not going to produce anymore. We
Right.
won't have
As
like
long as-
6
Well, and they're
little kittens
vaccinated.
Yeah.
underneath
In
our
the
porch.
cage.
you know?
Do they get spayed right at the facility, or do they go out to a
They
vet?
don't, they go to a vet. Tracy has been with the Humane Society for 13 years now.
Okay.
But she also is a part-time animal control officer for the town of
Oh,
Dartmouth.
okay.
So because we have the contract, everything kind of works hand in hand. So they would go out, set traps when people call, trap the ferals, and then we try to take the babies and get them as soon as possible to get them used to being socialized and handled. And
I
then they'll.
think these guys
Yeah,
are
I
used
think,
to
I
it.
think you did a
I
really
think
good
you-
Well,
job.
you know, the earlier the better. I mean,
Yeah.
when you
When you
start
put
getting
into sleep.
kittens that are, 6 months old and you're trying to,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
not so much. But it's been proven, like it's a scientific thing that, years ago, I've been doing this for 34 years now. But way back in the day, what would happen is the ACOs would come in and they would trap all the cats and remove them, and they would be put down. But
Yeah.
more cats just come in. It doesn't
Yeah.
really resolve
You
the
have to
problem.
resolve the initial problem. right?
So over the years, what they found is that by spaying and neutering them, vaccinating them, putting them back out there, the reality of it is that the lifespan of an outdoor cat is cut down substantially as opposed to a cat that's in your house.
Right,
Sure.
right.
So
course.
it was, I haven't looked at it lately, but it was like, a 2-year. I mean, there's
Really?
wildlife that's gonna get them, there's
Yeah.
cars that are gonna hit them.
Sure.
But they're not reproducing, and
Right.
that's really and it's proven in the numbers that you see in the shelters.
Yeah.
I know when our neighborhood cats were brought back, they didn't look raggedy anymore. They just
Yep.
looked like healthy.
Right,
And that
right.
was like, oh, wow.
Right, well, and they're gonna, they usually, and some vets will test them for feline leukemia and feline
Yeah.
AIDS.
Yeah.
Because obviously you don't wanna be spreading disease out there either,
Right,
if
right.
if you're passing around sick animals. So it's really changed, animal
Yeah.
control philosophies have changed, animal sheltering philosophies have changed over the years. And I mean, they're adorable.
Now, what kind of pets do you handle at the shelter besides cats and dogs?
Oh, geez, we've had birds,
Cats, dogs, guinea pigs, rabbits.
reptiles, the pocket pets, the gerbils, the bunnies, the guinea pigs.
How'd you end
my
up with
God.
those animals? Is it people don't want them anymore?
It's mostly when people don't want them.
Moving.
Animals like the reptiles and things like that, usually it's because people don't know how to care for them properly.
Okay.
They go to a pet store, they see them. And pet stores are different than rescues and shelters. They're not, you're in there to purchase something. There
Sure.
aren't a lot of questions asked, especially if the people come off like they know what they're doing.
Right.
There's an assumption that they do, and these animals get really sick. And, not every vet takes care of reptiles or birds or the pocket pets.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't want to spend money. The less an animal costs, I hate to say it, but a $10 budgie or what people call parakeets, people are not going to take to the vet. They're just going to
Yeah.
open the window and let it out, or
Sad.
and same thing with the little anole lizards and
Yeah, the smaller
snakes and
animals
things
tend
like
to
that.
sit longer
The
in our shelter,
hamsters,
and the rabbits and stuff, so,
And they have specialized diets that you need. If you're going to go get a snake, it's probably going to either need to eat live mice or rats, or you're going to have to, I don't know, did they buy them deceased to feed to them?
Yeah,
I'm not a
I-
snake fan, so.
Frozen, right?
Yeah, I have one, so he's frozen. He eats frozen and only frozen, so.
Because getting your mind around that is a tough,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a tough.
I know, you're gonna go defrost something from the freezer and you see a
A lot
little
of people
line of
surrender
mice.
too is because they're either
Moving.
baby, they're moving,
Yeah.
they're
Sure.
divorced, or death in the family, so stuff like that is a lot of.
And it's interesting how many people want to come in and adopt, and they know they're not allowed to have pets in their apartment.
Oh, right.
And they try to sneak them in, and,
Doesn't work.
it's always amazing when they're going to sneak a puppy in. I mean,
Yeah.
you've had a
Right,
puppy.
right, right.
How easy would it be to sneak in a
Yeah,
puppy?
they're,
Yeah,
you
not so
can't
much.
keep 'em
Impossible.
quiet. Yeah,
And
that's
why
hard.
we do ask the question
And-
of if you own your own house.
So what's this,
The
what is that
landlord.
screening?
Yeah, what's the
Let's talk about
application
the
process?
whole,
Yeah,
like,
the whole
adoption
process.
So-
So Nancy walks in and she wants to get
And they say,
a
here
dog.
you go.
What
Yeah,
would be
yeah, it
the,
used to
You
be
walk
that
in,
way,
they'll
though. It
do
used
some
to be that way,
screening.
and now there's an application process. Every shelter or rescue kind of has their own way of doing it. Some places are going paperless, so it's more of a conversation now. Some places, it's a mix of a conversation and an actual paper, which is what we do. We try to get an idea of someone's lifestyle, especially if they're looking at a dog or a puppy.
Sure.
If you work 18 hours a day, a puppy is not going to work.
Right.
And people don't realize that. I mean, I don't find that people are inherently bad.
No.
They,
no.
If they get into trouble, it's
They're
usually a
good
matter
intended,
of ignorance.
but well-intended,
Good intentions,
but,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So you would fill out that paper, and the paperwork that we have, the application is kind of like, how many kids do you have? Do you have children? What are their ages?
Mm-hmm.
Because a 3-year-old with a kitten this size,
Yeah,
they
that's trouble.
break.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
get dropped, they're gonna break things. And we have animals that come in that don't necessarily like children or don't get along with children. So our job is sort of to match up your lifestyle with a pet that's going to, work in that situation. If you're a very active family, you'll do great with a dog that likes to go and walk for miles.
Sure.
If you're like me and you want to sit on the couch, maybe a cat's, you know.
Should be perfect with Rebel.
You know,
My
as you
yard,
can
yeah.
see, there's not a lot of activity going on here. But, so it's really trying to make a match for your lifestyle. And then a lot of times what will happen is we'll take your application and get you approved because we may not have an animal right at that point
Right.
that's available. Like, we haven't had dogs for adoption really, other than the, 1 or 2 that come in locally. We haven't brought dogs from out of state since last March
We have, yeah, right.
for
Now,
ourselves.
I noticed
you
on
know,
your
to adopt out.
website, like you network then with like other places.
Yep, we have
that-
partnerships with other places that we refer people to. They all need homes,
Yeah.
It's,
Right.
it's not a competitive,
Right.
or we don't want it to be a competitive kind of thing. If we don't have an animal that, you come in and you're a good home, and we go, wow, we really want to find these people a dog, but we know that there's another dog over at the Potter League or
Right.
Brown Dog or wherever the case, Standish Humane Society with the cats, we're going to refer you to them because they all need homes. It really
Right.
doesn't matter, who gets there first, as long as we get that animal out and into your home and everybody's happy.
Now, is there if someone really wants like a younger dog, like a puppy, is that tend to be a longer wait than if you're looking maybe for an older dog?
It does, and the other thing is that makes it a little bit longer is if you have a specific breed in mind.
Yeah.
Like there, with homeowners insurance right now,
Yeah.
the pits and the pit
Right.
mixes.
Sure.
Right.
And people are afraid of that breed. And it's
Do
really
they
been,
have to be? Like,
I would say no. I mean, we
it
say
really
that the
dependent
pit
on
bulls
how they're
have to be the ambassador of their breed. And people like to say, well, it's because of how the dog is raised. And that's not entirely true. There are some genetics involved.
Yeah.
And then there's some, bad people out there who have
Yeah.
trained the dogs to be
Right.
aggressive. But we've adopted out a ton of pits and pit mixes.
We also the rescue.
And we like to hook up with and partner with the breed-specific rescues. So there's Pity Love deals with specifically pit bulls and pit mixes, and it's a networking thing. And my big thing over the last 10 years or so has really been the partnerships with other groups
Yeah.
in the community. Even something like this,
Right.
normally, you don't see this happen very often where you walk in and say, hey, want to do a podcast? And
Right.
being that I'm old, I didn't know what a podcast was. I was like, what the heck is that?
a radio show that people can see with
And I was
us.
like, oh, right, yeah, we know about that. This is for the young kids,
Yeah.
But, so I think it's a great thing so that people know what's out there, know what if they have an animal, we like them to use us as a resource rather than a last resort. When your puppy chews the first pair of shoes or the first couch, call then. Don't wait until you're ready to get rid of the dog because
Yeah.
now 5 pairs of shoes have been.
Yeah.
So that's
Because we have
what I was
literature for
like,
people too,
Yeah.
know?
Oh my God, your website, I loved it. Like when I was like tooling through it, you have a lot of informational
Yep.
stuff on there and all these little blogs and resources.
Yeah, the
and-
web is an amazing
was.
thing. I mean,
Yeah, no, I found it like, wow, because
Yeah.
it's not just, oh, this is what we have available. Maybe it really is a super useful link for a lot of great information.
I wish I had known that. I would have probably saved about 5 or 6 pairs of shoes.
see,
You know?
your shoes would have thanked you.
Yes, exactly.
The shoe store, not so much.
No.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing when people start finding out the resources that are out there
Yeah.
for them because they honestly don't know. Everybody thinks, oh, adoption. There's so many other pieces to it.
Right.
That, just to ask advice from
Right.
somebody, hey, how do I, do you know of any boarding facilities? Do you know of anybody who's doing training right now
Right.
using certain methods or, you
So
know,
let's,
it's,
let's back up then. I'm glad you said that. So the services, all the services that you provide, so you do adoption, you're set up to do the grooming.
yep, we do boarding right now,
You do
as of right
boarding.
now, yep.
That's great.
We do the isolation for the other rescues.
The kids,
We have, normally we would have Kids Club, which is a club we started 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
So, again, I keep telling you I'm old and tired. You know, and the kids are our future. So
Yeah.
every little girls in particular, I find, all want to be a vet. I
Yeah.
love animals. I want to be a vet, and I
Right,
want to
right.
have a pony.
Right.
But they don't realize how many jobs are out there that involve animals that
Yeah.
you don't have to go get $500,000 in student loans,
Right,
or,
right.
you know, or that you're never going to make back more than
Right.
likely, or, you know, work yourself to the bone. You could be a dog groomer. You could be a dog trainer. You could work in a shelter. You could work in a rescue. So what we came up with was we were looking, obviously, for a way to bring income into the shelter for the animals, but also that we could sort of put together just a representation of what different occupations are that kids could do. So we came up with this kids club.
That's good.
So it's a week. It's $250. It goes from 9 to 1. And we ran 4 sessions. And it usually starts out, so we try to have 2 speakers a day that come in from some sort of animal occupation. It may be a veterinarian that comes in and, you know, they bandage the teddy bears and show
Right,
them what they
right.
do. They get to participate in different crafts that revolve around animals. One year we had a beekeeper come in and bring
Oh,
the
my
thing with the
That's neat.
bees.
That's great.
How old are the
And
kids
then
that are
it
coming
ends
in?
on the Friday, it ends at the Dartmouth Animal Control Officer's house. She has a
Okay.
horse farm.
Oh, okay.
And she's got, what, you never know if she's got cows there or,
Yep, she's got pigs, cows, and 15 more.
so they'll see the farm
Wow.
animals, and they usually have watermelon and lemonade and all that.
Yeah.
And and they get a riding lesson that day and learn
Sounds
how
like
to.
Great
'cause
experience.
she's
How old are these kids?
They, for some reason, we always end up grabbing more little ones than, you know,
Yeah.
there's always a sibling in the bunch. I think we were doing 6 to 11
Yeah.
was what we started out with.
So we changed it.
And then we changed it. Once you get into the, you know, the 11 and 12-year-olds, there's a little drama when because there's boys and girls.
Oh,
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
lot of love connections
Yeah.
that we just were not prepared for.
Yeah. You didn't
we-
think that would be happening when you
You know,
started
so
your
everybody
kids'
who
club.
works with us or volunteers with us has to be quarried
Yeah.
because we
sure.
are around the children, you know.
So what are the ages now?
So what did we end up with the last time we did it?
It was 7 to 11.
7 to 11. The
7 to
little
11.
guys, you know, we've had a couple of 6-year-old siblings, but they have to have an attention span.
Yeah.
You know, because they bring their own lunch, so they all get to break for lunch. They get to play with the animals, and they all end up, like I said, we have like 2 speakers, so we may have somebody come in from one of the reptile shops.
Okay.
We had the beekeeper one year. We have the animal control officers come and show them all the equipment in their vans and how they use the equipment.
Down to the vet.
And then we went to the vet hospital down the street, and they had a tour of that, and they learned about bandaging the animals and what veterinarians really do, not what they think they get to do. And it's just, you know, kids come in. It's really been interesting for me because Tracy is sort of the queen bee there and that runs the kids camp, and she it's interesting because we've had kids come in that are like literally holding their mother's leg and they've never been away from their homes, and they're like, you know, I don't want to stay, and they're crying, and
By the end of the week.
we usually tell the parents, just sit here, just sit in the background a little bit, and by the end of the week the parents come in and they're like, Mom, who? They don't want to leave. They're crying and holding on to her. And,
Yeah.
you know, they get a T-shirt from the kids club and they all sign it. It's basically a specialized kind of
Like a camp.
a camp, but not really a camp.
Yeah.
Because we want to keep it educational. That's the whole thing. We want
Yeah.
them to learn about responsible pet ownership. We have one little boy, Brody,
Yes.
that is he 13 this year
Yeah, he's
already?
13 now.
He's and he started coming. I think his uncle started paying for him to come 1 week, and then he was like, "Well, do you have room in the second session?" Now this kid has been coming like all 4 sessions every
Really?
year. I'm like, I'm gonna give him a job. Are you kidding? When he's old enough. But it's you know, it's really been something to hear the feedback from the families and the kids. They just love it. You know, they
Will that
just love
start
it.
up again this year? at some
Not
point?
this year, when one of the things, Tracy's gonna cry. One of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the whole staff vaccinated for COVID.
Yeah,
And I have a couple of people that just don't want to do it for whatever reason.
Okay.
You know, and there's a big safety concern. We
Sure.
can't, I don't want to be exposing any of the children, and I certainly
Right.
don't want to be exposing any of the staff as well, so.
Of course.
Hopefully, we can get to a point where we can get everybody on board with the vaccines
Yeah.
and maybe get some herd immunity. I don't think they're vaccinating little kids yet. I think they're
Not
doing
yet.
16 and over on
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
the vaccines,
Studies are
so.
underway, Pfizer's.
Yeah, so I
Doing
think,
studies
I
right
think
now.
eventually we'll get there, but it definitely won't be this year. And you know, another piece of it, when we're talking about like our fundraising and stuff, for the big gala that we do, you know, how do you go in and ask restaurants to donate gift cards for the auction when they're suffering?
Right, right.
Because, you know, they're losing their livelihood. I mean,
Right.
so it's a difficult, I'm hoping one more year and we'll be able to get back into it.
I think so. I think we're.
I do
we
too.
turned
I
the
think we're
corner
well on
and
the way.
I think we're getting there,
Yeah, I think so,
especially in this area.
yeah. Tracy misses her kids. They're all gonna age out. She's gonna have a heart attack.
Wow, I love them.
We'll
It's
have
just
to
so
have
much
an
fun.
older,
have
they
such
just
good
love
fun.
it. They just love
The
it.
Canine officers came in. That
Oh,
was
yeah,
a
from the
good
sheriff's
time.
department, they
Yeah.
brought the dogs and everything, and, you know, teaching them to search for
Oh
things.
my
And
God.
the
What a
president-
great program.
yeah, the president of our board is actually the executive director of an adult day health program in New Bedford called Project Independence. And because we transport animals and not children, the big thing was, okay, so we'll get the kids on the Friday dropped off at the farm. How do we get them back for the pizza party at the end? And I was like, oh, we'll put them in the van and bring them back. And our insurance company went,
There you go.
that's not a dog. So Project Independence was kind enough to give us their vans and their drivers. So they sent vans out to get the kids, because they transport people, and they picked up the kids and shuttled them back and forth from the
They
from
also
the
bring
hospital.
their, you know how they do with their kids.
Oh, yeah, we did a multi-generational thing, too. We did the Lloyd Center, brings in a
Yeah.
touch tank,
Yep.
and we partnered with Project Independence Adult Day Health in New Bedford, actually sponsored it, and they sent a bunch of the elders to participate in the touch tank.
That's
And you'd be
great.
surprised how many elderly people in the city of New Bedford have never been to a beach, never really touched any of the, you know, the starfish and the shells and things
That's
like
great.
that. So it's really, we're really trying to get into the partnership
We
stuff.
bring animals, we have pet therapy at one of the nursing homes I'm at, and it's really
Nice.
therapeutic, especially for the
Yep.
dementia patients.
Yeah,
You know, they just love it. They light up when the dogs come in, or the cats, or whatever
Yeah.
it may be.
we go into Project Independence once or twice a month with the animals, and the elders just love it. You
They
know,
do. They really
just
do.
love it. And a lot of them had pets when they were younger, and they're
Right.
just not in a position now, you know,
course.
to do it anymore.
And
But
there's so much isolation,
Yeah,
especially with
absolutely.
COVID. Many of those folks haven't even seen their families for a long time.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
they're starting to open up where families can
Yeah.
come in, but for a long time, they were very
yeah.
isolated.
COVID has really made you really look at things, you know, and how you do things, and you've had to really, I mean, all the organizations, I'm sure, have had to get really creative about how we
Sure.
how we exist, you know? I mean, it's difficult. It's
Right.
very difficult.
Tell
We're also starting to see now, this is sort of an interesting thing, we're starting to see the animals, I call them the COVID animals. Everybody went crazy. I'm gonna be home, I'm gonna go adopt a dog.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a
Oh,
puppy, I'm
right.
gonna get a cat, and now, so you've got different segments. You've got the people who planned for it, and I'm
Sure.
going back to work, but you know what? I've been training the dog, and I'm good. And then you've got the people who are not going back to work, who now have no money to afford their pet.
Right.
Yes.
And then you've got people who are going back to work, and now they have dogs with serious separation anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're used to these people being home with
Right.
them
All the
24/7.
time, sure.
Which isn't a normal situation,
No,
you
of
know.
course not, yeah.
So hopefully, you're hearing about all these shelters and rescues that have had record numbers of adoptions over this past year. And
Right.
I'm just praying to God they don't all come flooding back into the shelter as things
Yeah.
start to open up and
Right.
Hopefully
get
not.
back to normal, you know.
That actually probably leads to my next question. Tell us about fostering pets. I know there are these foster programs out there.
Yeah, the state has actually put new restrictions in place, so it's a little bit trickier. You know, foster programs used to be, oh, you seem like a nice lady. You know, if you could be approved for adoption,
You don't know her.
So you could just kind of take an animal home and things like that. Generally speaking, what we use, we don't have a lot of foster homes, and there are new guidelines now. You have to fill out this form that has the best practices in foster care, and the shelters and rescues are responsible for more and more financially speaking with it. And it's just, we've had fosters in the past that have done things like decide that they're going to give away the animal and find it a home, or,
Yeah.
the cat's ear looked a little crooked, or
Yeah.
the whiskers, so they went running off to a 24-hour emergency. Just be careful you don't roll back.
Okay.
A 24-hour emergency hospital and run up a $1,500 bill with
Oh,
tests,
gosh.
and we're on the hook for it. So it's a
Yeah.
very
It's tricky.
difficult thing to try to come to terms with, or the dog bites somebody because somebody took home a fostered dog and decided, let's have all the kids in the neighborhood over
Right.
with a dog that doesn't like children.
Oh, no.
And again, so there's some liability issues in there.
Sure.
So every shelter and rescue is kind of trying to come to terms with
Yeah.
how they're going to handle that.
Oh, jeez.
Because nobody is going to, government agencies aren't going to look at humane societies or shelters and rescues and go, oh, you love animals? We'll just let you slide on that.
Yeah.
We're not going to make you pay that gas bill.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not going to, it's not going to happen. So
So
it's
if-
a business,
Oops, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If people want to, it's a two-part question.
Okay.
One, how do you volunteer, and are you accepting volunteers right now? And then how do you donate? If I want to give you a bunch of money, how do I do that?
Put it right in my pocket, right here. That blank check, I'll take care of it for you. So the first part of the question is, we do have a volunteer application on our website, which is www.hsss.org. And you can download an application on there to adopt an animal. You can download an application to volunteer. The only thing that's not on there is the application that you have to fill out for the query form.
Okay.
So people would have to come into our office. As of right now, we have not been taking volunteers because we're still grappling with
Sure.
the vaccine thing. What are we
Yeah.
going to do? But certainly, we've been open to the public the whole time.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
just been masked up. We've had, we kept our door locked, but the state, in the very beginning, they called and they were like, what's your protocol? And I was like, because at that point, the 2 tigers in some zoo had tested positive for
Right,
COVID.
I remember
And they
that.
were like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
COVID's coming with the animals. And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to give everything a bath. So we just like wash all the animals like crazy. And they actually were like, that's a good idea, because if anybody's
Yeah.
blowing their nose or, at that point, nobody really knew
Right.
much about COVID.
Right.
Right.
So we were able to do that. See, I tend to go over the river and through the woods to Grandma's house about the volunteering. But so we're not taking folks right now. You have to be at least 16 years old.
Okay.
We have to have a valid tetanus shot. So what we tend to get is a lot of high school students that have to do
Yes.
community service.
Right.
I believe the Catholic Church requires the teens that are going for their confirmation have to do some community
They
service.
do,
Nice.
they do.
And a lot of the different clubs at the different
Girl-
schools, and the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
We had Comcast Care come in with 100 people to
Oh,
paint.
my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's a lot of people in one
Are they
one
still
building.
available?
I don't know if they care about us anymore. We got our building painted though, but they, so they would need to come in and fill out. They can bring us the filled-in form or mail it or
Okay.
email it or however they want to get it to us. But they would have to come in and do the query form, because anybody over 16 does have to be queried if they're going to be in our building. And the donation piece of it, they can go right online. They can mail in checks. Our Facebook page has a donate now button, I believe, on it. Here I go again with, I don't know, I can turn the thing on, I'm lucky. But our website, you can donate on. We have a wish list on there of different items that people donate.
Oh,
that's
that's
good.
great.
Yeah, and the thing that makes us a little bit different than some of the other places is whenever we get things donated, if they can't be used by us, whether we don't have that particular type of animal or whatever, we share it between other shelters that we partner with. We send stuff down south. I mean, we've been sending truckloads of,
Right.
things that we take for granted up here, pet carriers,
Yeah, yeah.
blankets and towels.
Right.
We think, oh my God, more blankets and towels. and we ship them down south. Or if we know one of the other town shelters needs it, we'll say, you know what, they can take it.
What are some of the items you always need?
Cat litter,
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Non-scoopable.
non-scoopable cat
Non-scoopable
litter, because
cat litter.
scoopable cat litter goes down our drains
Okay,
and wreaks havoc and costs us lots of money in plumbing.
I could imagine, yeah.
But things like, that you wouldn't even think of, paper towels, copy paper, the kitten chow, kitten formula, during the spring in particular with the kitten formula. you
Yeah.
know. The dog food, we tend to get a lot of that donated.
Canned cat food.
Canned cat food is another one we spend a ton of money on because we tend to have more cats than we do dogs.
And it doesn't matter the brand or
Any-
anything. It's
No,
just
most
canned
people
cat food.
usually get Purina or what's the 9 Lives cat food. The cats don't seem to. The kitten chow, we just use Purina kitten chow because of
Okay.
the size of it.
Yes.
And they like it. So, we go with that. But any of the cleaning products, laundry soap, we go through laundry soap like,
Really.
oh my God, and it's so expensive because we have to disinfect every day that building is taken apart and washed and
Oh,
disinfected.
you can tell as soon as you,
You
walk
know,
in.
and you
it's
have to,
just-
or it just
Yeah.
doesn't stay clean.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
looks so clean.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So this is backing up a little bit. If someone was thinking of getting a pet and they thought it through well and they're convinced that they're going to be a good pet owner, what would be the advantage of going and getting a pet from, say, your shelter versus a pet store versus a breeder somewhere? Give us an idea.
Well,
of,
the first thing that would be noticeable, I think, of most of the shelters, but I'll speak directly towards ours right now, is I find people come in and they get a little sticker shot. They go, how much is it to adopt a cat or a kitten?
Sure.
And we go, $240. And they go, oh my God, the last cat I got was $25.
yeah.
And we go, right, but now these cats and kittens have been tested for feline leukemia and feline AIDS. They've been defleed. They are up to date on all of their vaccines, age appropriate. They're spayed and neutered when they leave. You're getting a cardboard
spayed and
carrier when they
neutered.
leave.
Microchip?
Always. They're microchipped before they leave.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So all of this.
You're actually getting quite a lot.
You're
for that
getting a
money.
lot for
Yeah.
your, we would argue that, honestly, we're probably losing money
Yeah.
on every adoption,
I'm not
but
sure
we
how
want
you
to get
do it
them
for
out
that
of there.
amount of money, really, quite honestly.
It's expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just the way it is. And anybody who owns a pet who goes to the vet one time
Sure.
realizes how much money you're spending. You could go to get a free pet from somebody in the paper, but you're not going to get the medical stuff covered.
Sure.
And usually what will happen is people go do that. They answer an ad on Craigslist, which is probably the worst way to find a home for your animal. And they go answer an ad and they go, I got this dog or this cat. It's acting funny, and now it's sick. So now on top of needing everything else, now they've got a sick visit. Because of COVID, try and get a vet appointment.
Yeah.
And a lot of
very
the vets
hard.
aren't even taking new clients. So it's typically most shelters and rescues have an established vet that they do business with
Okay.
that generally speaking is pretty good about making appointments for people and things like that. But so we say to people, get a vet visit like a wellness check within 2 weeks of when you take it. Obviously during COVID, they're not going to get a vet visit
Sure.
within 2 weeks. It might be 3 weeks or a month. But that animal has had everything already. So the chances of it getting sick are much less
Right.
than getting something with no vet care.
I think a lot of the dogs, when they try to get them off Craigslist or,
Mm-hmm.
or Facebook, is the previous owners don't tell him, they don't say everything that's bad about the dog. They just
Right.
everything.
They sugarcoat
this
it.
is a golden dog. This is great. I love this dog. And then we get the phone call a month from now that the dog tried snapping at their child, or
Right.
There's
stuff
not a
like
lot of
that.
background and a lot of
Yeah.
education that goes into.
Well, that was one of
When
the
you're
things I
getting
noticed
Right.
on
an
your
animal,
website too.
you know.
It's like you do a really nice synopsis on all the animals, and you have that little breed finder
Mm-hmm. Yep.
thing that says these breeds can be good with children or. maybe
Right, and
think
there's
about-
nothing set in stone. I mean,
Right.
always there's an animal with a different personality
Right.
or, but and that's why we like to deal with a lot of the breed rescues, because if you're going to adopt a certain breed, something that needs to be groomed every 6 weeks, you might not be thinking about that.
Right.
But now you're talking about an extra $60-$70 every
Right.
6 weeks.
Right.
That's a financial commitment for somebody,
Absolutely.
It adds up.
And you're assuming that dog is going to enjoy being groomed. We each have dogs that have to be sedated to be groomed because
Oh,
they're
wow.
bad boys.
Wanna roll it out?
But that's just the way. So those are things that you have to think about preferably before you're getting a pet.
Right.
You know, instead of after the fact now, and you bring in this Shih Tzu that's never been clipped, and it's just a big matted mess.
Yeah, I think that people don't think about the cost afterwards sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because I know when I got my dog, now almost 6 years ago, we ended up getting the dog from a breeder. I wish I had known about or even considered going to a shelter. But we got the dog from a breeder, and it was expensive. And I had a little sticker shock, but then I didn't realize, and it's been fine, of course, but that was such a small cost compared to everything that came afterwards.
Exactly.
I mean, everything that came afterwards was, he gets groomed, once a month or every 6 weeks, as you say. He because we wanted him to socialize and we work. He goes to, doggy daycare a few days
Yep.
a week.
It's another probably $50 a day.
Yep, it's
You know, it
expensive, and
adds
then
up.
there's just
Oh.
everything else, and the cost of the
Yep.
vet
Even
bills and all
dog
that.
walkers.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
the
There's
initial,
nothing cheap about it.
you
At
know,
the end of the month,
an initial
yeah.
cost of $300 or $250 or whatever it may be is really
Nothing.
It's
Nothing.
nothing.
I say to people, it's like getting a free boat.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Here, have this boat. Great, I have a boat, and now, well, where do you dock the boat? And what do you do with
Right.
it all winter? And how do you, or a free horse? That's another one.
Right.
That's all wonderful to get things for free. It's the aftercare.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, as pets get older, they're like people. They need more care. So, an 8-year-old dog that goes to the vet for a dental now is going to need a complete blood workup.
Right.
Because they want to make sure that they make it through the anesthesia. So now you're adding on a couple more $100. I mean,
Sure.
you're talking hundreds, sometimes thousands as you go on. So if you've paid $1,000 for the puppy
Right.
to begin with, that basically didn't have much vet care. I mean, I don't even know what it is to spay a dog now, full price at a vet. I mean, somebody.
170, I think, around 170.
Oh, it's got to be more than that. We had a
Just
we
this
had a
was
lab.
that-
Just a
the sh-
vet visit to walk in is 60
$60, $70
It's
for a
more
vet
than that.
visit
I'm
now.
sure it's
And
more
about
than that.
5 years, well, we went through a shelter to get the.
Yeah,
Well,
if you
that's-
go through a program, you can do it. But
Yeah.
now trying to, and some of the vets, and I mean, I understand where they're coming from. Their thought is, if you have $1,500 to go buy a dog, you should have the money to spay or neuter the dog.
Right.
Dogs
So the
get
vets-
so expensive, like for a thoroughbred. It's like the prices that people are paying.
Well, people
are
would
like-
argue that, good breeders, if you will, are going to be looking at who's buying their puppies.
Right.
They're not going to want their puppy to end up in a shelter down the road. They're not
Right.
going to want them tied in the backyard somewhere. They want to be sure they're taken care of. And they're carefully breeding lines to preserve that breed.
Right.
Not just, Joe and Bob on the corner going, I've got a great dog, and my dog, we hear this all the time with backyard breeders, is what they're called. I really love my dog's great, and you love your dog, and we need to have a puppy. And they think they're going to get one puppy, and then they've got 10 puppies, and oh my God, now what do we
Right.
do?
Right.
And
Right.
believe me, keeping puppies for 8 weeks in your house
It's
is,
a lot of work.
that's a lot of work.
How
you know?
old are the puppies when they get spayed?
How old are
Yeah,
they?
how old are they?
We do ours at 3 pounds. Ours are all pediatric spays and
So,
neuters.
so how old is
Well, the
that?
male-
about?
So they're,
The males are gonna wait a little.
you've got to wait
longer.
until their testicles drop.
Right.
Because, you don't want to be digging around their abdomen for that. I mean, not
Yeah.
me personally, but a vet.
Right, right. So how many
Um,
weeks would that be about?
Oh, they're probably close to 10 weeks
10
by
weeks.
then.
10 to 12
Yeah,
weeks,
10 to
yeah.
12 anyways, depending on their size. But you want them to be able to come through the anesthesia.
Yeah.
There's a big push now. A lot of the veterinarians are citing a study that was done talking about not spaying and neutering again, sort of like back in the old days when the dogs are, some vets have said 6 months, some have said 9 to 12 months
Yeah.
on the large breeds.
First heat.
Coming from a shelter background, I hear that and I cringe because I go,
Yeah.
you know how much can go wrong
Right.
during that 9 months?
Well, it's funny when we got our dog from a breeder from down south, and they came spayed, and I think he was, I want to say he was like 8 weeks or so, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a little bit older. I can't remember now. But when we brought him to the vet was horrified that he was spayed
Yeah,
so early.
yeah.
And just cited all these bad things that was going to happen, none of which happened, by the way. He turned out to be a great dog,
Yeah.
but I'm just curious, because a lot of breeders do, they don't want to let their genetic, information go, so with
Right.
the animals, so they spayed them.
Well, especially if
8
they're
weeks or
truly
so.
breeding to better the breed.
Right.
They don't want you taking an animal
Correct.
home and just breeding it with any, any mixed breed, not even a mixed
We
breed, but,
actually
you
had
know.
that in our purchase and sales that we could not breed.
Yep, a lot of people do. But
you
the
know.
reality of it is, you're
Really?
gonna
So,
go to
yeah.
court over
Interesting.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
a judge is
I
gonna
know.
go, yeah, okay, that's a priority. But you know what I mean? But if somebody is truly breeding to preserve a certain line,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, like the dogs that you see like at Westminster and,
Yes.
you know, we don't know those dogs.
Right.
But the best kept secret is there are tons and tons of purebred animals that end up in rescues and shelters all over this country.
Yeah.
All over this country. I
I ask
mean,
you a
shocking.
Quick question too. Like a lot of the purebreds, they have like disorders that are known to the breed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get away from that when you have a dog?
Yes,
with,
when
like,
they're mixed, yeah. There's less health problems, the more sort of diluted they are.
Yeah.
But you also get a lot of unknowns, so that's the flip side to
Right,
it,
right.
but health-wise, they say you tend to get a lot less health issues. So the collies are known for having problems with their eyes.
Pugs
The
are,
pugs are known for, the
Yeah.
flat nose and the
German
breathing and
Shepherds,
things
hip
like that.
issues, hip
German Shepherds with the
dysplasia.
hips,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's, it really depends what your preference is. We tell people if you want to get a purebred dog, there's tons of breed rescues we can direct you to. That they'll all be spayed and
great
neutered
idea.
when they go home.
Yeah.
Most of them are foster-based.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're getting something from a foster home, that's like the perfect situation, because now we know whether they're housebroken
Right.
or partially housebroken. We know if they're good with dogs, cats, kids. You get
Right.
more information. And the foster homes are going to be typically more honest with us than, for instance, we had a woman come in this week with a dog, a cute little miniature poodle, and she said, I have this dog, and it was my neighbor's dog, and my neighbor passed away, and there was no family to take the dog. And I went, I've got a lady that's been waiting for this dog. It's housebroken,
Really?
it's good with dogs.
Gosh.
And I'm like, oh my God, this warms my heart. There's one of your questions.
It was.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then our vet tech comes in and goes to vaccinate the dog and goes, wow, this dog has huge glands swollen.
Oh, no.
Wow, this dog's teeth are like every tooth in its head needs to be extracted.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, well, we need to call this lady and find out,
Yeah.
if this dog's been acting funny or anything like that, not eating. So we have a fake phone number, a fake name,
Oh.
a fake address. So, you've got an animal that has all of these needs, and you walk into a shelter, and not only do you lie about it, but now the new woman has met the dog.
Yeah.
And now I get to call her and say the dog may have lymphoma.
Oh,
Right.
geez.
So people just need to be honest about what's
Yeah.
going on,
Right, right.
and it's a really hard thing sometimes when you've got something, or your animal is at the end of its life, but it's the right thing to do,
Right, right.
Right.
it's these animals rely on us, and we have an obligation to do this to them.
Sure.
Don't come in and lie and break somebody else's heart,
Yeah.
or put the animal in a situation where someone's child gets mauled.
Right.
Because
right.
you're getting rid of it because it doesn't like kids, but you don't want to tell us that,
Yeah.
and then we place it with kids.
Right.
So it's a difficult thing, but people really need to be honest and think
Yeah.
things through.
It must be really hard for the older pets to get homes for them, I'm thinking, because everyone loves puppies and kittens.
It
but-
is in one way, but again, it depends. A small dog that's 5 or 6 years old is not nearly as hot as a German Shepherd that's 5 or 6 years old, or
Right.
a Great Dane that's 5 or 6 years old that maybe is going to live to be 8.
Right.
Sure.
And most people who love animals, I'm a sucker for the seniors. I'd take
Yeah.
a senior all day,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
day long over a puppy or a kitten. It's a finite amount of time. It's a
Right.
much shorter commitment. Yeah, it costs you more money and vet bills and things, but you know what you're getting.
Right.
And if you have small children at home that I'm going to be looking at college and things like that,
Sure.
well, maybe that's not the time to get into a big financial
Right.
commitment. But for right now,
Right.
Right.
it's going to be a relatively short term,
Right.
So I think people, especially if they know a story, like if a person has passed away,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I go, oh my God, that's so sad.
Right.
It makes me want to take an animal
Sure.
like
Right.
that, So
Right.
in certain circumstances, it is. They're not nearly as cute. You saw how everybody went to mush when we walked in with the
Right,
kittens.
right.
Just a little.
And an adult cat that's just kind of sitting there, maybe not so much,
Yeah.
But we have a lot of people who come in and say,
oh, yeah.
I don't want something that's gonna be biting my feet every
Right.
morning when my feet hit the floor, or
Sure.
when I'm
Right.
trying to sleep. I want a cat that's just gonna sit
Right.
on my lap and let me pet
Sometimes
them.
we also have, we have a person that'll come in that's over 70 and they want a kitten.
Yeah.
It's
So
too much
it's just something that we have to.
So you try to direct them,
to
Exactly.
something older. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a 15-year-old cat that they
No.
take,
Right.
but
right?
especially with some of the elders that come in and they're on all these blood thinners, and then I'm like, yeah, this kitten's gonna shred this person.
Yeah.
Because they're
Yeah.
kittens, they
'Cause
get sharp
that's
little
what they
claws,
do.
and,
Sure.
they jump on my counters, or they climb my drapes, and that's what they
We had
do.
somebody bring back
What-
a cat because it was too friendly.
Too
Yeah,
friendly?
It drove them nuts. We were like,
That's
that's a
interesting.
little odd.
That's interesting.
but that doesn't happen that often, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do? This is a difficult question, but what do you do when you get the animal that's, terminally ill, has some issue that, someone drops off a dog or a cat that say has lymphoma or something such as
Yeah,
that?
it depends. Like this particular dog, the lady that we had in mind just lost her elderly dog, so she has no desire to do this again
Right.
this
Yeah.
quickly.
Sure.
But depending on what happens with its teeth, because dentals in animals is a really big deal right now. People don't realize it. But just like humans, if your teeth are a mess, you have heart problems and all
Sure.
kinds of other
Right.
issues that go along with it. So depending on what happens with his teeth, if we can get his teeth under control so that he's not in pain and he can eat
Right,
normally,
right.
we could put him in a hospice home if we can find somebody to just let him live out his life.
That's
It-
nice.
It does exist. But obviously, if he can't eat
Right.
because of his teeth, then he would have to be euthanized. But
Is
it's
that,
gonna suck.
is that
You know.
do you go to a vet for that, or is that done at the shelter?
We have the ability to do it. We work under the guidance of a vet, and we have a certified vet tech that works with us as
Okay.
well, that works for us 40 hours a week.
Okay.
But, to me, if this was gonna be what it is, they just should have told us when they walked in,
Right.
not everybody go through this. And I
Right.
mean, the reality of this too is that if every animal walked in the door like this, I mean, dentals can go from $1,000 to $2,000. This, by the time we do this, we've now done a complete blood workup. The dog has had an ultrasound. And thank
And a lot of
God, Anchor Animal
diagnostics.
Hospital is very good to us.
Yeah.
Sure.
And does a
Yeah.
lot of things as a teaching thing for new vets
Nice.
that are coming in. But this dog is gonna be, we're gonna be thousands of dollars into this
And then a
dog.
week later, we ended up with a Shih Tzu that's 10
With a
years old.
mouthful of
With a
teeth that need to
mouthful.
Oh, no.
So it's, when people donate specifically for medical stuff, that's really helpful as
Nice.
well, because it's just, I mean, you could literally go broke just
Yeah.
on your vet care. I mean,
my
that's,
gosh.
it's not the vet's fault. I mean,
Sure.
So sometimes you see families going in to the shelter. It's like, let's go get a dog day. And it's like, well, I don't think you're going to walk home with it today.
Yeah, normally no. What we tell people is get your application filled out and get it to us so that we can get everything out of the way. We can check with your landlord, we can
Yeah.
make sure your animals are all spayed and neutered and up to date on shots. If somebody can't afford what they have right now,
Right.
promising your child to come get another one, it's not gonna go
Right.
well. And it's not to be mean or anything, it's just that it's a reality. If, you have to be able to, in the off chance that this animal you're getting is carrying something, we don't want an unvaccinated animal at home getting
Right.
sick.
Right.
And now you've got two sick animals with no money to take care
Hey,
of.
what's the best way to introduce, like, say you think your dog's lonely, like if Rebel wants a little friend. Like, what's the best way to introduce another dog? Like,
What
you're
we
like,
do is
want
we
another
would,
dog.
we'd get your application, get it all approved. Once we know what you're looking for, and for me, I like when people come in, because then I can put a face to the
Sure.
name, like that lady
Yeah.
that I knew was
Yeah,
looking.
We wouldn't put a bull mastiff in an apartment or anything, so we gotta kind of use.
You get,
the logic
Sure.
of
yeah,
that
and making it
as
fit
well.
your, if you live on a third floor apartment, a Great Dane is,
Right.
when you're 70 years old, the 2-year-old Great Dane is probably not a good.
So when
a
you
good- a good
introduce
choice.
dogs to each other, like, what's the best
Yeah.
way to do
Well, once
that?
you're
Or put
approved,
these-
so you say we have a dog at home, and we go,
Yeah.
okay, well, this dog does this, the dog we have like dogs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
dogs are like people. It doesn't mean they're gonna like every single dog.
Sure. Sure.
And a
My
lot
dog's
of
like
people
that.
who don't
Yeah.
go to doggy daycare go, my dog loves everybody. And they've never, when they think
Yeah.
about it, they've never actually been with another dog.
Right.
Yeah.
So once we have you approved, we would have you bring your dog down.
Oh, that's
Once
smart.
we figure out which animal's
Yeah.
the best choice.
Yeah.
And we always introduce them outside of the building,
Nice.
on leashes, walking up and down the road.
Nice.
Because if they're gonna go rip their face off, and then the next step would be,
Right.
we'd bring you into the building with them on leashes.
Nice.
If one of the dogs is more dominant and kind
Yeah.
of in their face, chest
Yeah.
bumping them,
Yeah.
There'll be times too when people come in and they just have their heart focused on this dog, and they
Yeah.
have another dog at home, and then we tell them to bring their dog in for a meet and greet.
Yeah.
And it's a
Those
nightmare.
dogs don't get
They
along,
just don't.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you know
Sometimes
right
they
away
get-
when the dog's
So you have-
Typically.
you
I
have
mean,
to
there's a
be-
difference between a dog that's a little bit standoffish with
Yeah.
another dog and a dog that we think is
Like
going to kill
It's
the other
aggressive,
dog.
yeah, it's
Or
aggressive.
somebody who has a cat at home and they want to adopt an adult dog from down south that wasn't in a foster home.
Right.
not a good idea.
We don't know, you
Yeah.
know, and we are obligated to disclose everything to people.
Right.
But people do stupid things. I mean,
Yeah.
So you have to be really like an investigator, an animal psychologist.
Yeah,
I mean,
social
all of-
worker.
social worker, all of this stuff. Yeah, there's a lot that's involved in this. It's amazing.
yeah, there's a lot of drinking at night when you go home. But never on the job.
So you know,
Hey, we're approaching an hour. This time is like.
I know it's blown
I
by.
told
by.
these like ladies, like I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like 30 minutes, but I'm just like, we could be here all day.
I
There's a
know.
lot to cover, you know.
Yeah.
There's so many aspects.
But we
to it.
learned a lot. I mean, we
Oh
learned a
my
lot about
God.
what the shelter offers, about the
Yeah.
great service that they provide, the difference between adopting a pet from a shelter
Yeah.
versus a breeder.
Right.
We learned
is
about the
great.
responsibility that's needed, and this was a great
And we
conversation.
really pride ourselves on our customer service. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of
Oh yeah,
we
you
hear-
actually you were the first person I saw, and you were super friendly.
There's a
I was
lot
like,
of
oh.
shelters and rescues around that I think it's interesting when you're trying to hire somebody to work in the shelter.
Yeah.
They fill out their application and they go, I love animals and I hate people. And we go, oh, get rid of that one. you know, but you'd be shocked.
Or I don't want to clean litter boxes or kennels, but I love to pet the puppies.
Yeah, we don't have like, paid petters that,
Yeah.
Right.
because we'd be taking those jobs if we did. But, so we tell people, just come in and say hi,
Yeah.
just stop in and see what's going on. Typically, when there's no COVID, we have different events going on. We do the Easter basket raffle with the kids and have
Oh,
the
that's
Easter
great.
bunny and all that jazz. And, like I said, we're big into the community partnership stuff. So.
But then
Great.
if people just go on your website, they can see the donate
Yep.
buttons, and they
Yeah,
can
absolutely. Yep.
donate that way, or
Facebook as well. Yep.
drop
Yeah,
off
they
some
can
money.
go through Facebook. They can mail in a check. We have a lot of people mail in checks in memory of an animal lover that's passed away.
Sure.
They'll
Yeah.
ask
Oh,
you
that's
to
a
see in
great-
the
great
obituaries
point.
sometimes
That's
in
actually
lieu
what
of,
we
in
do
lieu
with
of
my
flowers.
mom. Yeah.
And then we have people who are, they truly have no one, and they'll leave us in their will.
And what I really love is the kids, they're about 10 years old, they have a birthday party.
Yeah,
They don't want anything for themselves, all they want is stuff for the animals.
it's
the
shocking how
shelter.
many
It's
kids
just
do
Yeah.
this,
so
and they get
nice.
donations, and we
That's
take their
great.
picture and put it on the Facebook page.
That's
or
great.
They'll do a lemonade
That's a great
stand.
idea.
Yeah.
It's really, it kind of gives you hope that I
Yeah.
don't have to do this until I'm 90. Someday
Come
there'll be
on.
someone to take our place because we're not getting any younger. So.
Right.
So then,
yeah.
as we kind of wrap everything up, is there one final message you'd like to get out to our viewers?
For me, I think the most important thing is to really reach out if you're having a problem with an animal and use us as a resource and not a final, when you're at
Don't
the
wait
end
until
of
it
your
gets
rope.
to that
Yeah,
point
don't
where you
wait
can
until
take
it gets to that point. Even if you are at the point where you're like, oh my God, I'm going to kill this dog. I'm going to open the door and just let the cat out. And
For bites.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
We
just
call
call
it,
and talk to somebody. Because sometimes, we've talked people off the ledge too.
Yeah.
Like, there is hope.
Sure.
You don't choose 5 pairs of shoes. Call after the first pair of
Right,
shoes.
right,
That would be I think my biggest thing is to not just find homes for animals, but keep animals in their homes
Right.
that are
That's
already
great.
there.
Well,
That's a biggie for me.
Thank you so much for doing this. We
Oh,
really
you're
appreciate
so
this. This was a
welcome.
great conversation.
Oh,
This
yeah,
just
it
flowed so
was.
easily.
I know.
So if someone does want to contact you, why don't you give your contact information?
Yep, they can call the office at 508-995-6661. Or they can go on our Facebook page and follow us on Facebook. We put everything on Facebook now. That seems to be the thing. And we have the website, obviously, www.hsssc.org.
Thank you very much. And I want to once again recognize our sponsor, Bay Coast Bank, which is just right for your financial needs. Visit baycoastbank.com or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. Thank you very much. This is Chris and Nancy on the
Thank
27
you.
Degree from 27 Degrees Consulting, and we really appreciate having both of you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
The cat slept through most of it.